And welcome to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway. There he is, Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. And Flyers are in Montreal tonight, looking to stop an 0-4-1 skid against a team they're actually tied with in points, Bri.
Yeah, it's kind of snuck up on them. Montreal was probably considerably behind them for a while, but now after not picking up a win in their last five, they've slid right back into a tie there. So it's again time to snap out of this. It would be great to do it here. It's a pretty big atmosphere. I don't know if people that play for Montreal get used to hockey night in Canada and all that on Saturday nights, but feel like the opponents that come in, when they don't always get to do it, got to be pretty amped up. It's usually a big deal for the guys that grew up in Canada. So we'll see how they enjoy it tonight.
Well, it's also, as you mentioned it, the Bell Center. I know it's not the old Montreal Forum, but it is one of the cathedrals of sport. To play in Montreal, the dual bilingual anthem and the way they present a game. And you've been to Bell Center, right?
Yeah.
The thing about the Bell Center is it's built like old American indoor arenas. In other words, arenas in the United States are on a pitch that is, I don't know what the degrees is, maybe 40 degrees. But the Bell Center is like a wall of people. It's so steep, and they feel like they're on top of you, and the atmosphere is electric, and all those banners from all those years. There's just so much history there, and it's a really cool place to see a game. I'm glad that I've been there a couple of times, and it is a daunting environment.
I've always just assumed it's American building codes that
I think
have taken that away. If you're one of those folks that remembers the Spectrum well, the Spectrum was kind of pitched like this. I'm not even sure it was quite this steep, but it was. It's definitely something that you don't really see in the U.S. these days. And it's. I was in there for the draft this past summer. I hadn't been there long enough ago that Ray Emery was playing for us, because I remember watching the game with Ray because
across the bench,
the visiting goalie sits across the bench at the other on the other side of the rink where the entrance is to the visiting locker room, and so it was probably 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, but. So we were at the draft this past summer, and the draft is a bit of a different animal. There's access from you walk in, you can walk in on street level and just walk down the stands to the draft floor. And I remember walking up, and I was pretty beat by the time I got to the top of that lower bowl, just because of how steep that stairway is. It is definitely a lot different.
It's like a ladder.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different than Wells Fargo Center, but in hockey setups, like the press box where Timmy and Coatsy are tonight, it is the closest thing you get to one of the old style gondolas. It is a its own concourse, if you will, kind of hanging from the ceiling, and so it's out over the stands. And if I remember correctly, I know MSG is like this, but if I remember correctly, I think Bell Center is too, where you have fans behind you.
You do. As you're walking up the catwalk.
Yeah, so it's a really, really nice vantage point, really fun place to do a game.
Not to mention the press meal is pretty good.
Yes, they're famous for their hot dogs. They serve these hot dogs that are in basically a slice of bread that's folded in half or something like that. And you eat them by the half dozen. It's really nuts.
Yeah, and it's just an electric atmosphere, and their game presentation is awesome. So it's a lot of history.
They were doing. We do it now. it's a little more prevalent now. The projections on the ice.
Yeah.
But they were doing that, I think, first. And I remember they had the one thing where they had the hammer banging at center ice and it would fall away. And then they had the other thing too, where they had somebody actually skate out with a torch, and it looked like they're lighting the ice on fire, because they would put it center ice and the whole thing would spread out. It's also the only place I've ever been asked for an autograph, because I was walking out to the players' entrance after a morning skate, and there's people out there, just everybody they can find. And I didn't know how to say I'm not a player in French. So they just kind of smiled and walked away. I'm sure they thought I was some sort of stuck-up player or something like that. But it was, you don't get that in a lot of other towns.
My not knowing how to speak French thing happened there as well. So in 2010, I stayed at the Hotel Chateau Champlain, which is right across from the Bell. And there's a place there. It's like the Reading Terminal Market that was across the street from the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a bunch of restaurants and stuff like that. So I go in there and I order some food on an off day for lunch, and I'm trying to pay, and the girl goes, "No, we only take Canadian money." So I'm like, "All right, is there a ATM machine or whatever?" And she points down. So I go down and I wait a couple people in line. I get to this machine and I'm standing there, and it's all in French, and there's a line of people behind me, and I'm there fumbling like an idiot. And finally, a guy that spoke English came up and said, "What are you trying?" I said, "I'm trying to get money out." He goes, "This is the train ticket machine." I'm like, these people are trying to get the tickets for the train to get home, and I'm there fumbling around like an American idiot.
Oh, good Lord.
Don't want to be an American idiot. That was me.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But certainly a good town and great place for hockey. I don't know if you saw this stat. Let me give this number to you. This is insane to me. The Flyers play a game at least every other day from the calendar date November 8th, so that's 11 days ago, all the way through December 17th. So that's 21 games, Bri, in 40 days.
Joy.
Woof.
Yay. Yeah, I mean, that's today's NHL, right?
Yeah. One other team has that same amount in that 40-day period. That was at St. Louis.
This is why we can't find any time to do the Broadcasters Roundtable.
Yeah. And it's like every other game you're on the road.
Yeah. And I know that, and I know from trying to schedule the Broadcasters Roundtable, we get a little bit of a break from that. I think in January it starts to open up a little bit. There's some various opportunities, but right now, yeah, it's just, and I suppose it's kind of good to get that out of the way. I feel like the Flyers have had a lot of months of March that were like that, so hopefully down the stretch it'll be a little bit easier on them. Get that out of the way early when you're still a little bit fresher, I guess, than you would be at the end of the year. But yeah, it's tough, and the one thing it does do is it keeps you in your rhythm. It keeps you doing the same thing day in, day out, and all that. But there's not going to be a lot of practices, I don't think, in those in those 41 days.
Yeah, there's not going to be, and it's one of those situations where you love to kind of rely on some organizational depth so you can rotate some fresh legs in and stuff like that. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case, because we get news today, Bri, that Travis Konechny has returned to Philadelphia. We don't have anything else just yet. They stayed in Boston, and then they left Boston yesterday afternoon. And we got the notification earlier today from Chuck Fletcher that Flyers forward Travis Konechny is out tonight due to an upper body injury, and he has returned to Philadelphia for further evaluation. So we'll see what that means, the further evaluation. I don't know if he went to Montreal and then flew back. Maybe
he came back. I do know that. He didn't go to Montreal. He came back yesterday.
Okay.
But I don't know what he had done. I know they're calling it an upper body injury. I suppose that means when he puts his arms by his side, it becomes a lower body injury. I think we all know what it is, but we don't know what the exact injury is, but we know it's pretty obvious where it happened. So you just hope that whatever it is something he can recover from quickly. The fact that he came back to Philadelphia tells me that it's not necessarily a break, unless they, unless that's what they're getting reevaluated as the next step forward. Because every building has X-ray machines. I mean, they're in the building. If you need to get an MRI done or something like that, then you would come back home to get that done. So we'll have to see. It's certainly. Though that's not the kind of news we wanted to hear, that he'd be coming back, because that just means that it was probably not a day-to-day thing for him. So
and when he didn't come back in that third period, I think we all thought, we'll see what the full scope entails here. But I mean, he's having such a great year. You hate to see this, and I mean, he had a 7-game point streak ended in that last game on Thursday. Of course, he didn't play the third period in that game. But the 7-game point streak tied his career high from back in February 1st through the 22nd of 2022, where he had 1 goal, 6 assists, and 7 points. But in this point streak, he had 13 points, 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points in 11 games, including 4 multi-point games, and he leads the team in multi-point games with 7. So it's a huge loss.
Yeah, and it's not just the production that he has been achieving. It is the minutes and the roles that he's been playing. We've talked a lot about how he's on the penalty kill for the first time, and he's being used in the one thing that I don't think had been touched as far as line combinations is I'm not sure that he and Kevin Hayes had ever been split up. They'd had their winger change. But even that, even to the point where that one night they sat out the whole third period, I think they were hand in hand almost the whole way.
I think you're right.
If they were split up, it was very brief. So that's a whole new challenge.
Well, they even sat a period together.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I mean right down to the point of that one game where they didn't play in the third. So they're going to have to figure out now. How to reshuffle that. Kiefer Bellows will slot in the lineup. He will certainly not play on a line with Kevin Hayes, I don't think. But they've already been trying to mix things up a little bit with that winger on that line. They've found some things that absolutely do not work, and they found some things that have some
work
promise. So, so they're gonna we'll have to wait and see when warm-ups slot out here. We're a little bit later tonight than we normally would be because of Hockey Night in Canada, plus it's Hockey Fights Cancer Night in Montreal. So there's some pregame ceremonies going on. So we'll have to see how warm-ups shake out here, but it'll definitely be a bit of a different look for that top line, whoever's on it.
John Tortorella did meet with the media earlier today, and he said that this comes from Charlie O'Connor's Twitter. He said Torts is looking for Morgan Frost in particular to step up. Says he'll be on a line with Joel Farabee and Owen Tippett, and will get top power play minutes as well. Said he thought Frost made a bunch of plays versus Boston and wants to see more of that from Morgan Frost. And I agree. I thought he had a good game against Boston. He was assertive, created some opportunities, and won the faceoff that they got the goal on. Big night for Morgan Frost. Good opportunity.
And this is something that Tortorella and the rest of the coaching staff, they've been looking for this for a little while from him. They wanted him to step up. They wanted him to, not just settle for being a decent prospect player. They think his ceiling is pretty high. And at first he wasn't really maybe answering that bell, but now he seems to be doing so. So, it's a good opportunity for him to slot in here. We've always preached this next man up mentality. Why not have that be today? And it's a good opportunity for him to jump in there and get some more minutes.
Yeah, and look, one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit, and I know Bill and I have talked about it on Flyers Daily as well, is that Morgan hasn't necessarily been playing with skilled players a whole heck of a lot this year. Well, he is tonight. I mean, he's got a shooter on one side and Owen Tippett. And we saw the shot in the last game from Owen Tippett, and we know what he can do. And another guy looking to find his game a little bit is Joel Farabee. I'm not sure how much he's hampered by the offseason surgery that kind of came out of nowhere, kind of blindsided all of us. But here's what I do know is talking to enough players over my career that guys, when they have a chance to prepare and train for a season, they're much more effective in the beginning of that season than they are when they are rehabbing from a surgery. Huge difference. Huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else, it's one of those things that, you take it with preparation, you take it with a little bit of expectation, and it's a lot easier to handle. I have found it interesting, that, this is the same surgery that Jack Eichel had. And, all the hemming and hawing over that surgery that went through him and the Sabres, for Farabee, it was just okay. It was like getting a tooth pulled. I mean, it was just, we're gonna go in and do it. And he came back, and he was even back earlier than he was supposed to be, and everything's going great. So, you just are glad that he wasn't the first guy trying to do it and missed 8 months trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's been points this season where I go, oh, Joel's back. He had that multi-point game, and maybe a 3-point night that he had. And he looked like Joel Farabee and taking the next step, but he's been a little erratic. He had a point in the game against Columbus. He had an assist in that game. And, it was that Florida game back on the 27th of October He had a goal and an assist in that game. He was really good in that game. Played 1809, important minutes, and just looked like Joel Farabee again. Trying to get his legs under him, that's not easy. Or no,
Right.
actually, it may have been the Nashville game. He had a goal and 2 assists in that game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, well, both of those games, he looked good.
Yeah. And you're talking about a guy that did not have any preseason action, I don't believe, right at all.
Nope, none.
So no. He was skating in training camp, but I don't think he had any contact. So certainly it was going to take a little bit of time for him to step in there and kind of get the the cobwebs shaken out a little bit. And I can't even begin to think about what he was feeling when he was playing, or what felt different after the surgery. But I'm sure there was some stuff there to get used to also. So it's not a surprise that it took him a little bit, but he's clicking on all cylinders now. And that line, we'll see how this line puts. In the warm-ups, apparently was the top line. So we'll see how that shakes together. It just does. I do find it interesting that the solution here with connecting out is that Hayes goes down and centers Max Willman and Patrick Brown. That's a different look for him. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a big time different look. And I think the thing is too, Bri, is, with Frost, I would keep Frost and Farabee together. They seem to have some chemistry last year. So like we have Hayes kind of paired with Konechny, and then you rotate that other winger. I would keep Frost and Farabee kind of connected too. I think those two can play off each other.
And we know. Okay.
All right, here we go. That's right. It is the Betway, brought to you the Flyers game day with Brian Smith and Jason Myrtetus. It's easy for me to say as I'm all tangled up on the damn cords here. Yeah. Hopefully the team's more ready to play than I am to broadcast. That's for sure. Flyers in Montreal tonight for Hockey Night in Canada and Hockey Fights Cancer Night in Montreal.
Yeah, it's a big night. Obviously, it's this is one of those things that a lot of the guys that are on the team that grew up in Canada, they kind of grew up watching this, and always part of the dream, right? For Canadian kids to be playing in Hockey Night in Canada, so it's a big deal for them. It's a great atmosphere. It's always fun to play in Montreal, and so it's going to be probably a little extra energy for these guys tonight as they hit the ice up there and try to snap this little bit of a skid that they're on. 0-4-1 in their last 5, despite playing better by most of their measurable metrics. The only measurable metric that's not going their way right now is the scores of these games. So let's try to get it all together here.
Yeah, and obviously one of the big talking points, we were just talking about it on the stream, is that Travis Konechny is not going to go tonight. He came back direct from Boston and is not in the lineup tonight. Kiefer Bellows will go in the lineup tonight. But really a pretty substantial shakeup here. And John Tortorella looking for more out of Morgan Frost, coming off a good game towards assessment of the game against Boston for Morgan Frost. And he's going to get an opportunity here tonight to play with some skilled players on the top line in the Cathedral of Hockey in Montreal. Huge spot for a guy in Morgan Frost who's got a lot of skill, but the coach wants to see more end up on the score sheet. So he's going to play with Farabee and Owen Tippett. And boy, feed that guy Owen Tippett the puck because he can shoot it.
Yeah, he can shoot it. We saw it the other night. And how about Morgan Frost? Let's back up a couple of weeks here.
Yeah,
they go to Toronto, which is Morgan Frost's home rink. His father was the PA announcer there for I don't know how long. He goes to Toronto and he's a healthy scratch in Toronto, which I'm sure for him pretty much resonated, more than any other healthy scratch would be. So now they go to the other big cathedral, Montreal, in his neck of the woods, and he gets bumped up to this point. This is about the exact opposite of being healthy scratched. So we'll see what happens here. We'll see if he can take advantage of it. The coaching staff has been looking for him to take the next step here pretty much all season. He's been one of the guys that John Tortorella has mentioned that they want they want more out of him than perhaps he thinks that he's capable of. Cam York was another guy that they want guys like this to be able to seize games. They want them to be able to dictate play and really come out there and make a difference, as opposed to just being out there getting some scoring chances and generating some things. They think that these guys have the potential to be dominant players in this league, and they want to see him get there. And so they're going to put him in the opportunity to, see where he's at in that regard tonight.
And let's go through the lines because interesting, Konechny out. He and Hayes have kind of been connected at the hip as line mates with a third. And, Konechny's absence tonight really has caused a trickle-down effect in the lines here tonight. So here are the lines from line rushes and warm-ups in Montreal. The top line, as we just mentioned, Morgan Frost centering Joel Farabee and Owen Tippett. The second line, Noah Cates centering Scott Lawton and Zach McEwen. I don't know if McEwen's ever been the top 6 winger in the NHL. But
working his way up the lineup.
Yeah, put something up on the board tonight there, Zach. Hayes centering Max Willman and Patrick Brown, who just got back into the lineup for the first time this year. And Lucas Sedlak centering Nick Deslauriers and the inserted Kiefer Bellows. He comes in for Travis Konechny. Hayes, Willman, and Brown, though. First of all, what it does is it gives you 2 centermen out there that can take draws in Hayes and Brown. And Willman is a guy that can skate. He can move. And we know that, look, this is no slight. Kevin Hayes is not the most fleet-of-foot NHL player. I'm not breaking any news there. But, this line could generate something because Willman can really get in, forecheck, create some things, and then Hayes can distribute or go into those soft areas to pick up a goal.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this group overall, this is you got one guy here who was brought up from the AHL. They basically made a swap of bottom 6 forwards. Tanner Lisinski went down, and Max Willman comes up. He's a guy. He's the guy that has basically played his way into the NHL over the last few years. Started in the ECHL not too long ago, and he's shown a lot of skill that folks had not seen before. And then on the other side, you got Patrick Brown, who's been recovering from off-season surgery. Just got back into the lineup the other night in Boston. He's going to need some time probably to get back up to speed. But you've got a potential here for a third line that could do some things when you've got those 2 guys playing with the skill of Kevin Hayes in between them. So with Travis Konechny going out, and they need to figure out something to do with Kevin Hayes. We know there's certain people in the lineup that they don't think he works well with. So you're going to go with 2 guys that certainly have not seen this line combination all season, if ever. 2 guys that are only in their second or third games of the year with one of the team's top players.
Let's look at the D pairs for tonight. And they're pretty much chalk where they've been for the most part since all healthy pieces have been available. It's Provorov and D'Angelo on that top pair, Sanheim and Braun, Sealer and Ristolainen, and in net tonight, Carter Hart gets the start once again. So Flyers in Montreal tonight, going to see Nick Suzuki, who's leading this team in points. Boy, has he been good so far this year. Picks up the C, which is a big deal north of the border. And Nick Suzuki so far this year leading the Habs in points. How about these numbers? He has played in 17 games. He's got 11 goals and 10 assists, 21 points, 3 power play goals, 3 power play assists, so 5 power play points. He has put it together very nicely, +3 on the season as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that obviously has got some experience behind him, but he's relatively young.
Came over from Vegas, right?
Yeah, he came over. He was drafted by Vegas, and came over to Montreal. And just to put those 11 goals in perspective, his career high last year is 21 in 82 games, and here he's got 11 goals in 17 already. There's guys out there that they may not play well in the pressure of a place like Montreal, but so far Nick Suzuki has thrived here. He's an OHL product. He knows what it's like to play big games in that country, and he's a former 100-point guy in the OHL. So
he played for London Knights.
He played for Owen Sound.
Owen Sound, okay.
Yeah, but he is from London.
Okay,
he's from London, but he's come over. He never did play for Vegas. He came over pretty quick, and he has had a steady rocket up in Montreal. He did not get bothered at all, it doesn't seem, by the pandemic, things like that. He hasn't been on very good teams, minus 29 last year, but he's been one of the bright spots for this team in the last few years, and that's what earned him the C. And he's so far this year showing no signs of slowing down whatsoever.
Yeah, 23-year-old captain in Montreal. It's a big thing to heap on a young player, but We'll see how he handles it. Of course, I think he was part of that Pacioretty deal, if I recall.
Yeah, that
With
sounds
Vegas.
right. Yep, yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean, you remember how they were wheeling and dealing coming out of that
oh,
expansion draft. I mean,
geez. Yeah.
they were, and some of the things that they pulled off. I mean, somebody should write a textbook on that because that
Yeah.
was staggering. The way
Yeah.
that they, Jonathan Marshall showed to me is the biggest deal. Like he was a throw-in, so they wouldn't take a certain player from Florida and they took somebody else instead, and then he goes and scores 50 goals in Vegas. I mean, that
Yeah.
was unreal how they put that team together.
Cole Caulfield, also a guy. Flyers passed on him not once but twice. He's got 9 goals on the season, 7 assists, and 16 points. So just a tick under a per game player. But you got to be mindful where Cole Caulfield is out there. He's a diminutive guy. I can say that because I'm also diminutive and short in stature.
Part of the club.
Yep, I am part of the club. I'm not only part of the club, I'm the president. But he can fire the puck, man. Woof.
Yeah, and people still talk about that, and the hope for the Flyers is that eventually the combination of Cam York and Bobby Brink is greater than that of Cole Caulfield, because that's basically the path that they went instead of taking him. But as of right now, obviously he's the established NHL player. Flyers are still waiting on the other two, but we'll see what happens down the road. Obviously, though, he is a dynamic player and usually a fun guy to watch, especially in a market like this.
No question about it. Stay tuned, though. We've got Tim Saunders with Steve Coates. Yeah, they got through customs. They let them in, and they are on site to bring you all the first period action. Countdown to face-off coming up next. Flyers Canadiens on Saturday night. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day presented by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Enjoy your hockey, everybody.